All right. Welcome everybody to the last meeting of the fiscal year of our executive committee meeting of the Alexandria-Arlington Regional Workforce Council. Stacy, you want to welcome everybody?
Welcome everybody to our meeting today.
Awesome. Okay, so what we are doing today is we are going to, first of all, there's nobody in this room for public comment and nobody's online for public comments, so for public comment. But we will have time at the end if you all want to have anything to share. We're going to review the June meeting agenda, approve our consent agenda, and then we are going to, when we did our local plan and you all approved it a meeting or two ago, there were some things that came up during the public comment period. We had 3 comments and they are right there, and we'll talk about that after we go through our agenda, our consent agenda for June. And certainly have time if anybody wants to discuss anything. All right, and in your meeting notes, which I shared with you all, these are the meetings for the next fiscal year. September, December, March, and June. It took me a while, but I finally figured out how to schedule meetings on within the actual quarters. It was a challenge. All right, so our meeting in a couple of weeks will be a virtual meeting. We'll have a review and an approval of the consent agenda that we're discussing today. Marissa Hayes will be back to talk about any updates in our labor market situation. Here's a spoiler alert. In Alexandria-Arlington, while in March, the unemployment rate was up to about, I think, like 3.1% or something like that. It actually, about 100 people or so actually went back into the workforce. So if you look just for Arlington, Alexandria, not too bad. You look at the Greater Washington region, and of course we care about the Greater Washington region as a whole. But we'll have more information from Marissa about what's going on in our labor market. And then we will, everybody had opportunity to look at the position statements that we had and see if we want to make anything updated, and we'll talk about that in a second. Sound good so far? I appreciate all of you. All right, consent agenda. Obviously, we had our meeting minutes from April. We'll have in our packet meeting minutes for today. We will have our one-stop operator quarterly report, which I have put on the website. So if you go back to the meeting information page on our website, and if you need the link, let me know. You can see the quarterly performance that we've had so far. I think the one thing to point out is that, I think somebody mentioned it on the call, it's not just the federal employees and government contractors that were laid off, but there is a indirect effect, as well as just the normal people that we typically see. And so in Alexandria, where it's had their workforce has had a bit more of an impact than Arlington, really like almost 2 to 3 times more the people have went to the workforce center in Alexandria versus Arlington, which I think is interesting. The calls, a lot of these calls are about unemployment insurance. Overall, our WEO goals are going in the right direction. We're spending our money. We're hitting the notes that we could hit, and so I anticipate us having spent out all our last year fiscal year money by the end of June, as well as hitting our performance goals. Feel free to stop me when you have questions. Then the next thing that we'll be looking at is our WEO youth waiver. As you know, every year we ask the Regional Workforce Council to allow us to perform our WEO youth services through our city staff at the Alexandria Workforce Development Center. Instead of bidding them out, we are allowed to do this by law. I like the notion of asking permission every year. The reason why we bid this out is because it's really not a lot of money. And so, there's just a cost savings and efficiencies when we do this youth program internally at Alexandria. Also, they already have a summer youth program, so even more savings there. And then our eligible training provider list additions, George Mason wants to add a bookkeeper and a freight broker training program. So there has been, they've had some people asking for those programs. And then, yeah, I think that's the only one. And it's just an addition. So they're already on the list. They just want to add a couple more programs to the list. So I hope everybody had a chance to read the packet. So, our meeting notes from last meeting. There are 18 people in attendance. Thank everybody that showed up. They approved the meeting packet. Those were our notes. I showed you the quarterly report already. And then this is our waiver for local. And again, please have me pause or stop when you need me to. That basically describes why we're asking for this, how we intend to run our youth program. We anticipate that we'll get $254,000 for the next fiscal year. I'll put an FY there, I saw that. This number actually might be significantly lower. We still haven't received our allocations yet, but it'll certainly be less money than we received last year. And so 254,000 is actually a 10% decrease from the money we received for this last fiscal year. So certainly less money means it's even more critical and more efficient to keep these services within our centers. These are all the different types of program opportunities or elements through our youth program, and these are the organizations that we either partner with or work with or procure to do these elements. So, our plan is in place. And then, that's at the, we'll be asking as part of this consent agenda for the Regional Workforce Council to approve this waiver allowing us to perform WIOA services internally. Any questions so far? All right. And then the eligible training provider list, as I said, there are 2 programs, freight broker training, and these are all virtual programs. They're all relatively inexpensive, about $2,000 a piece. They all have soft skills built into them or professional skills built into them, certified bookkeeper. Another virtual program, it's a little over $2,500. But we've had some people interested in these programs. They meet all the criteria for getting onto the list. George Mason does a great job for us. And so I recommend us including those programs.
Dave, I have a question from the
Sure.
freight broker one.
Yeah.
Who's a potential employer for that? Is that already? Do we have a pipeline set up for students?
Well, logistics folks, if you think about all the, we have the Amazons and, look at every retailer, there's, transportation, logistical things there. And if you just look at, anything, any shipment, whether it be from a mail or, I think hospitality, there are a lot of things get shipped back and forth. You look at the ways that you can ship something. There's obviously sea, air, train. So if there are a lot of these jobs, no, I was a little bit surprised when I saw it. But it's one of those things where, to me, if there are people asking for it, and the enough that a university wants to have us on the list, to me, that works. It's a good program. Now, do we actually fund this program? We'll take a deeper dive there. So again, there we may have, I think there are, a couple thousand programs on each eligible training provider list. We don't fund all of them. We only fund the ones that when people come in and need services and want to take a training, we'll fund those. So it's, again, the way it works is for us to spend money with an education provider, they have to be on the state eligible training provider list. It's part of the law, basically. And so, if there was somebody, let's say Amazon was hiring for a freight broker and it's just one person and they couldn't find anybody and somebody came in and Amazon said, this is a good person, but we would only hire them if they have this particular certification. Yeah, then certainly we would consider enrolling them into, paying for that certification. That makes sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. So that is the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions about the consent agenda? Going once, Alberto, did you have your hand up? Okay, going once, going twice. All right. Someone motion to vote to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
All right, I'll call, actually just, there's nothing here. I'll approve.
Aye.
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 Alberto?
Aye.
All opposed? Beautiful, motion passed. All right, so let's go to, I think I have yep. So this was last year's legislative position. So again, what we do is, one of the things that we can do is help influence what our elected officials select to approve and vote for at the General Assembly. And so in 2023, we developed these positions. We agreed to them, and then I sent them to our two, both jurisdictions, General Assembly liaisons, so that they know. And so when they are down, when our county and city liaisons are down in Richmond during the General Assembly, and they're looking at all the bills that are popping up, they'd love to see what bills are in the interest of localities, what bills are of interest to the various stakeholders like the chamber that provides position statements, as well as the Regional Workforce Council. And so when they see things that come up are education and workforce related, they'll take a look at our positions and say, all right, well, this seems like this is something we should do. And oh yeah, here's the Regional Workforce Council that also agrees with it. So let's put our weight behind it and tell our legislatures that this is something that they should consider. Make sense? And so these are the
Yeah.
positions from last year. We already approved them. From 2 years ago, we approved them again. And we will spend time in the next meeting talking about, going through this and making sure it's correct. I think it's still relevant. Eric Page just came to me and asked if we can add an additional one. And he suggested, to support additional funding to assist the reemployment needs of residents affected by federal budget cuts. So that would be an addition. So that is something that we will discuss at our meeting in a couple of weeks to see if that's something that should be included. Like that says, everybody probably won't have a problem with it. Right now, there is no money coming down the pike to support this population. So at least if it's something that we put in there, maybe it's something that our liaisons can suggest to our elected officers down in Richmond. Make sense? All
Yes.
right. That's just an FYI. Okay, so let's go back to. Can everybody see this or should I make it a little bit bigger? I'll tell you what, make it a little bigger. So we did our local plan and we had a few public comments, and these are them. And these are ideas that popped up. And the question that I have is, should we be looking at addressing these needs in the next fiscal year? Or, should we be looking at something else? We don't have to do it, it's just a public comment. There's no guarantee in a public comment that says that we have to, just because you ask something does not mean that we necessarily have to do. The Regional Workforce Council should be doing the work that the Regional Workforce Council thinks it should be doing, period. But here is the ideas. What are we doing to support the needs of high schoolers? What is happening and how can we help? That's one. Two, should we conduct a robust analysis return on investment to see which efforts are working and where the gaps are? And then my question, is there explicit value in this? Because there's a ton of efforts going on there, and this could be a huge undertaking. And at the end of the day, what do we do with that outcome? Third idea is, should there be more pathway exploration in elementary and middle schools? What is happening now and how can we help? And so a lot of actual interest in, from the school's perspective. Now, it's important to know that the Regional Workforce Council provides oversight over youth funds, but 75% of those funds have to be used for after-school youth. So think basically dropouts. Doesn't preclude us from doing anything supporting, or doesn't preclude us from helping in-school youth. I participate, and so do a few of you on this call, participate in one or both of our jurisdictions for technical education committee. So we're already trying to, bring our message and our services there. I offer this as, the conversations that we have in these executive committee meetings are not just, let's approve a consent agenda. We can, you all can direct the work of what I and our American Job Centers do in part over the course of a year. And if these are things that we think that are of interest, then I think we should be looking at it and saying, all right, well, what is it exactly we think we should be doing? And then exploring how we could potentially help. Now, if these are all things that are, we agree are worthy of doing, but not sure that they are within our sphere of influence, well, then the question becomes, and something that we discussed before, what does the executive committee want to talk about in FY26? So this is a discussion, open discussion. I'm gonna stop talking right now and let everybody dwell on it for a second and see, what your thoughts are.
David, it's Monica. I have a question. Let's see, bullet point 1 and 3 kind of relate to each other for what I'm about to say. To your point, there's a lot of work already that's been done in this high school elementary space. So I think we might want to reach out to Trisha Jacobs, people like that find out what's already happening so that we don't money and time. We're going to now return on it, see what return on investment is all about. When there's already out there that they've already done, I'm sure she has some data points to share that might help respond to the question.
So just so I want to make sure I got this right. So basically the idea is maybe having Dr. Jacobs and either at the same meeting or a separate meeting, Chris Martini talk about what's going on in the schools and what they're doing to address bullets 1 and 3. And then by getting that information, maybe then we can have more information to think about, is there anything that we do to help? Is that right?
That way we're not spending a lot of brain power when there's already research and data points out there. We can just listen. Maybe she presents and we take that and decide how we want to move forward. That's just my thought.
Does everybody think about that?
I agree. I just posted something in the chat, similar to what Monica just said, data around.
And I agree with Monica. I think there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of work being already done. So let's tap into Chris and then see what comes out of that conversation.
Okay. We have our meetings. So we have an in-person in September and then a virtual in December. Typically we have labor market, that's about 15 minutes. We have our general business is about 15 minutes. And for the in-person ones, you've all requested that we spend, 15 minutes just networking. So to me, it seems like maybe I ask one of them to do it in September, you give them 15 minutes, and then the other in December, 15 minutes. And then in January, we can go back to this question with all that information, heard and to a next step. Sorry, that makes sense. It does throw out the conversation, but it makes it manageable.
Well, and the school year will be just beginning, so
Yeah.
they have goals and things that they are setting for the year, so we should hear those in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. We can do that. All right. Any other thoughts around this or any other thoughts about what we should be doing and talking about?
I think we've already hit it. You've already hit it about the federal employee layoffs and things like that. Like you have been hearing, more going to happen come the fall. So I think we just, unfortunately, we're in a time right now where what we discuss now may not even be a priority come the fall because things are changing so crazy. But I think we need to figure out some way, form of continuing, maybe adding a constant service or programs that can help them as they roll off the federal payroll. If maybe they're offering them support services is something that's a part of our fleet of services, not just an added point for 26.
Speaking about that, so I'm just starting to think about, potentially doing something in the summer. It's not going to be like a job fair, resource fair. While we had that, we had 35 exhibitors. Some of them are employers, some of them are resources. To me, the real value was the workshops that were heavily attended and the resume review. And so let me tell you the workshops that we had, and then maybe we could spend a couple seconds thinking what other types of topics are we missing that we need to discuss. Would that be okay?
Yes, that's right.
So we had some transitioning skills. So basically rebranding yourself. We had 2 of those workshops. We had 2 workshops on how to use AI for your job search. We had a workshop on starting your own business for some of these individuals. That might be a great opportunity for them. We had a workshop on emotional health and resilience. And then we had a workshop on managing your finances during transition, which was half filled. It's one of those things where I've been pushing this left and right as far as the types of things. It's one of the key things I think we need to bring out, and it's always the lowest attended, which I don't know what to think about that, other than nobody really wants to think about their personal finances because they're too scared to think about it. So those are the things, and they were all, with the exception of the finance, they were all oversold. So we had standing room for a lot of these workshops. Based on any conversations that you've had with friends, family, coworkers, people that people that you overheard, are there any other types of needs that this population is, or types of information the population looking for that we could potentially, we haven't presented yet, that we could potentially present?
David, when you talk about starting your own business, a part of that would be finding the capital for that. I had a conversation with somebody maybe about 2 weeks ago, and really wants to start his own business, but he's also concerned about doesn't know how to build capital. So as you talk about entrepreneur, maybe add that as just a suggestion.
That's a good one. Thank you.
And Dave, for part of the emotional health, is that for the individual, or is there a discussion around families and how families adjust to the change? Because we get a lot of that from the mental health standpoint.
That's a good one, Emily.
Also, I'd say when you mentioned transition, knowing that going from Google to private, the huge difference in hiring a federal and private resume. If that's already would be great. If not, then it needs to be.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So we do have the resume reviews. Alan Malu has been doing the past 2 sessions that we had. I jump in every now and then. And so what we do is we get about anywhere between 10 and 12 volunteers We've had a few people through the Regional Workforce Council that participated. And we have like 12-minute sessions where people sit down with their resumes and we just pick them apart, give them ideas and suggestions, let's go from 6 pages to brevity, all that stuff. So yeah, and so for the summer, I'm thinking, how do we make that bigger? Maybe get 20 volunteers, have a big hall doing it. So that part definitely, I think was of huge value. And I think I'll definitely need help from you all and others in my networks and your networks, just trying to find 20 people that are able to do it at the same time, that have the ability to do this type of review. But that will definitely happen.
Hey, David, what's the roundabout time that you're looking to do this? Because
Yeah.
it's already June and you're saying the summer. I'm just like, what's your thought process around a date for something
Yeah,
like
so
that?
right now we're looking at the last day of July in the afternoon. But nothing's secure. We're looking for a place to do it. And once I have that secured, then I'll let everybody know.
Dave,
Yeah.
one thing I want to chime based on the doing the resume is that there's a bit of an echo.
Yeah, the way this whole room's set up doesn't work. I apologize.
Okay. So this might be tough to do in that session. A lot of people who don't know where they are going. So maybe adding that career change aspect.
So when you say don't know where to go for help,
They don't know what their next path is. Is it going to be a business? Do they want to do something completely different? Do they, and like someone mentioned, if they go into the private sector, which line do they go? They don't have, some of them don't have a lot of clarity. And sometimes those resume review conversation is really about that.
yeah. So basically it's almost like, a quick career counseling session.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We put an application for a grant competition to get money to set up an executive coaching service. So basically to do just that, and hopefully I'll know either today or next week. But yeah, that could be just some quick hits. That could be interesting. Will, thank you. I saw your chat. I will certainly, as these plans solidify, I will let everybody know and secure help. I think for those of us, I know Alabama has been part of this. We've had a couple people from our council do it. I think that they found personal value into it. So, it's something that we'll continue. Any other thoughts? All right. Anything that anybody wishes to share before we end?
I had one more thought.
Yeah.
I know you're doing AI for job search, but perhaps offering AI literacy more broadly will be helpful.
AI literacy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually what the session was like. I think it was like half the session was about AI literacy, and then it went into that. But yeah, that makes sense. And oh, anything else? Then we have a motion to close the meeting, and got it done in half an hour.
Motion to close.
All right. Thanks everybody for all your help, and appreciate you all coming on and having your cameras on. Sorry to see it the first time. And have a great rest of a sunny day and intro to a rainy weekend.
Bye,
So-
everybody.
Have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye.